I'm going to be going through a lot of talking points here to highlight, obviously, what happened this morning. This is one of the more significant incidents that we've ever have ever had happen in our city. I think it's good that we take the time to really look at everything that's going on and what the steps forward are. So I'm going to start by kind of recapping the events that happened this morning. That happened today, Saturday, June the 12th. Our first 911 call was received at 1:24 a.m. and were followed by multiple 911 calls in which we had reports of shots being fired in the 400 block of East 6th Street, very near the corner actually of 4th and Trinity. There was a large crowd of people that were there at that time. This was Friday night in our downtown entertainment district. It is always busy at that time. We are back to our normal size crowds that we were seeing before COVID hit. And in addition, we have the Rot Rally in town. And I can tell you that we do not think that this incident is in any way related to the Rot Rally. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. As shots rang out, we had officers actually in that block. And so as the shots began to ring out, they immediately jumped into action and responded. Let me talk first about the victims. So the number of victims has actually increased to 14. We had an additional victim that, after I had given my initial press conference, self-transported for medical care and is in stable condition and it is not life-threatening injuries. So we have 2 victims that remain in critical condition, and then we have 12 victims that right now are in stable condition. Almost all of those victims are innocent bystanders. They are not involved in this, that to our knowledge at this point, and I say almost all of them, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. These are the ones we know about right now. And we're not even 12 hours into this investigation, so please understand everything that I tell you right now is preliminary. The information may change based on our investigation, but I think that when you have something of this magnitude happen, I need to be in front of the public early and often, giving as much information as I can. I want to express our heartfelt commitment to the victims. In this case, we will seek justice. We're going to get the people responsible into custody. I realize when we have an incident of this magnitude that happens in our city, even if you weren't there, if you're a citizen here, you feel it. And because of that, as I said, it's important for me to get in front of this group, and I will continue in the coming days and weeks to keep you informed on how this case is progressing. The suspect information that I'm going to give out is pretty limited, but let me just let you know that we have developed suspects in this case. There are 2 male suspects. I'm not going to release any further information because the investigation is very much ongoing, and we are actively working to get them into custody. I will say that I feel that we are going to be successful in getting them into custody. So we're actively working on that part. This investigation involves multiple local and federal agencies. The Austin Police Department is the lead agency in this. We're being assisted by Texas DPS, as well as by the FBI and our partners at the ATF, because guns were involved in this. This does appear to be an isolated incident between 2 parties. So that's why I say that most of the victims were innocent bystanders, but we're still sorting out all of the victims to see what their involvement is in this case. We're reviewing multiple sources of video. Our officers have their body-worn cameras. We have the public safety Halo camera system, which we've had for a number of years, which did capture parts of this incident. And of course, the local businesses themselves have security footage that we are reviewing for evidence. In reviewing all of this video, it has become very clear to me that our officers were just amazing this morning in the actions that they took, how quickly they took them, and the fact that I truly believe that they saved lives. We had 14 people that were shot, okay? And none of them to this point have lost their life. I'm extremely grateful for that, but I want to highlight that I truly believe it was our officers' quick actions that are largely responsible for that. As I said earlier, they were on scene within seconds and quickly identified several shooting victims that were in distress. They began immediate life-saving measures. They carry on their persons two things, an IFAC, which is an acronym for an individual first aid kit, and a tourniquet. And I've seen video already of them running to the victims within seconds, pulling out their tourniquets and beginning to apply tourniquets on gunshot victims. They applied those first aid kit, the things that are in there, and they were conducting CPR on some. As EMS made their way through the large crowds, officers did not want to delay care, and they actually began carrying victims from the immediate crime scene, and in some cases, they transported those victims in their police vehicles so not to delay that care. It was clear as people were running out of that scene, our officers were running in. And I don't want that to be lost on people because they are there to ensure the safety of our citizens and to provide that medical care that was crucial in saving lives. Ultimately, our officers transported 6 victims from the scene. EMS transported 4 victims, and 4 victims transported themselves for medical care. I stated earlier, I'll restate, those are preliminary numbers right now. They may change, including going down if we find out that any of that information is incorrect. I want to talk a little bit about safety downtown, okay? It is one of our paramount things that we put a lot of resources into, including our staffing. Last night I had 5 shifts of officers that were working when this happened. That is not unusual, and we staff them fully. We want to make sure that we hire, even if we have to hire overtime officers, to make sure that that happens. I have talked about the staffing shortages that we are experiencing at the Austin Police Department. It is making it hard. I'll just tell you that it's making it very hard for us to continue to staff at these levels, even if we offer overtime to our officers. I stated that our crowds are back to the normal size, and we have the Rot Rally in town, so that's an additional number of people that we had here, and it was very, very crowded last night. I have reached out to our partners at Texas DPS. They will be supplying a number of DPS troopers to assist with additional security this evening, and I will be evaluating the ongoing need to request their continued assistance in the coming days. They have readily agreed to assist, and I want to thank Texas DPS. They have always been outstanding partners in providing law enforcement and public safety services. We encourage people who want to come downtown to enjoy our amazing city. You know, we have these tragic events that happen, and they're horrible. Overall, we remain a safe city. And I think that people should keep that in mind, but also keep in mind when you come downtown, you need to be safety conscious. Travel in groups if possible, be vigilant of your environment and your surroundings. And importantly, if you plan to drink, have a plan to get home. I stated we're not even 12 hours into this investigation yet. There's still a lot of work to do. I want to ask the public to please contact us if they have information on this horrible crime. If you either witnessed this event or you have information that would be good for our investigators to know, I'm asking you to call one of 2 numbers. Either call directly to 911 so that you can provide it, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can call the Crime Stoppers tip line at 512-472-TIPS. You can remain anonymous if you call that tip line. If you have video from this incident, it's important that we get our hands on that video. Finally, I just want to assure the public, we're going to solve this case. And we are not going to spare any resources, any time. We've called in all of our resources this morning to begin working on it. They're dedicated to getting this done, and we are actively working to get those responsible into custody. I'll go ahead and take some questions.
Taking into account how many people got shot, do we know how many shots were fired?
We do not. That is something that is being investigated based on the video evidence, based on the number of casings that we can recover, and then also taking into account is a very chaotic scene. So that will be something that will be determined in the coming days.
Do we know what originated? Was it a fight first and then the shots were fired?
Based on our investigation, it appears that this is some type of a disturbance between two different parties. I don't have much more information that I can release at this point than that.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. Are you saying or alluding to the fact that we could potentially find out there were more than 14 victims, that number could change, or?
I just want to say, you know, I said that we had 13 victims several hours ago, and now we're up to 14. There are people out there that might have been shot that have not sought medical care yet or have not reported it to the police, and they may step forward. So those numbers are preliminary right now, and just like they changed from a few hours ago, they may change again.
With staffing, you mentioned that you had 5 shifts and that they were all fully staffed, if I'm not mistaken, but you said there are still staffing issues across the board just to get those. What staff requirements do you guys really have that are just going forward, especially after an incident like last night?
Yeah. So the tough thing for staffing, and we've been talking about this for a while, is the number of vacancies, and you know, the delay of our cadet class has made those vacancies go up at a pretty significant rate. And the start of our cadet class last week was, or this week, I guess still, was very important to turn the tide on that and to change that, but it's going to take some time. And so in the meantime, we've had to make some very tough staffing reallocations and some difficult decisions, and we ask a lot of our officers in giving their time off to come back in and work overtime. And right now, you know, as just like any other time, it's tough to ask our officers that have already been asked so much of. So I cannot highlight strongly enough, you know, that our officers step up every single day and do the things that are necessary to keep this public safe. They did it this morning, and they do it. I mean, these cases, not on this kind of a scale, they happen almost every weekend. So we're going to keep on doing that. We're going to keep keeping the community safe.
Do you see shortages in other parts of town where, you know, calls weren't able to be answered for a while because everybody flocked to downtown?
That's what we're examining right now. We continue to base our staffing model based on how quickly we can respond to our priority calls, and we are slowing down because we have fewer officers. So that is an issue, and it's what we're working on.
Chief Chacon, we're live with Univision. Can you say something in Spanish to our audience so they can hear what's going on?
Sí, este incidente pasó en la mañana, 1:24 en la mañana. Hoy hay 14 víctimas de balazos que están en el hospital. Nosotros estamos haciendo la investigación para agarrar a las personas que están responsables para este crimen. Y los detectives están trabajando duro para hacer eso.
¿Cuántos sospechosos hay, Chief?
Hay dos sospechos. Can
you tell us about the tourniquet and life-saving measures training that officers get that they were able to apply last night?
Certainly. You know, what I will do in the coming hours and days is go ahead and provide one of my trainers from our police academy. All of our brand new officers in the academy get the tourniquet and IFAC training, and then they are issued that equipment. Early this morning, with everything that happened, all of our officers' equipment was exhausted. We used it all. And so we came back in. I had my personnel responsible for supplying that come back in this morning and resupply our officers so they're ready to go for tonight. But that just goes to show, and I will have that person available to be able to talk about exactly what that training looks like.
What kind of charges can a suspect face?
That is going to depend on the nature of the injuries ultimately. You know, certainly we might be looking at everything from deadly conduct up to attempted murder. So all of that is being discussed with the DA's office, and we're working with DA Garza's team on the appropriate charges.
Were
Chief, the
ambulances
people that
having a
are-
tough time getting downtown? Were ambulances having a tough time getting downtown? If so, is that just because of traffic, or do they have staffing shortages that you're aware of?
I don't want to talk to the staffing of EMS. I'll let them do that, but I will tell you that we had significant crowds there last night or this morning, which is not unusual for a Friday night in downtown Austin. And trying to make your way through crowds, especially crowds that are panicked, like this crowd was, can be difficult for the large EMS buses as they're trying to get down there. And so that's why our officers kind of had to take some of the actions that they did.
Chief,
Jefe, buenas
tenía
tardes.
13
Telemundo Nacional. Dos preguntitas nada más. Pregunta número uno, ¿qué fue lo que pasó anoche? Pregunta número dos, ¿qué tan importante fueron las maneras de sus oficiales que salvaron vidas al meter a esas víctimas en sus unidades y llevarlas hacia el hospital?
¿Qué pasó en la mañana hoy? Es un pleito entre dos personas que pasó en la calle 6 y uno o dos de las personas están tirando balazos al otro. Hay mucha gente que tienen heridos de esos balazos. La mejor parte de esa gente son inocentes, no estaban metidos en el pleito. Los oficiales que están allí inmediatamente fue a ayudar a las personas que estaban heridos. En veces usaron sus vehículos para mover los víctimas del lugar del incidente al hospital.
¿Qué tan importante es haber...
Un momento, sí señor.
Sí, Chief. Había 14 heridos. Entonces, ¿usted cree que los que hicieron los disparos estaban buscando intencionalmente herir a tanta gente, o es que había tanta gente que los disparos hirieron a mucho? ¿Qué cree usted en su experiencia?
Yo no tengo información ahora que las personas que están haciendo los balazos intencionalmente están con los víctimas, no más entre los dos.
Historically, we've
Yes.
seen
What more can you tell us about the suspects and their whereabouts?
We're working on that right now. There's not a lot more than I can offer right now.
I think you just
Historically,
said
we've
that
seen
in
mounted-
Spanish, but,
Just one moment.
Historically, we see mounted and bike patrol police on that part of 6th Street, but last night we didn't see that. So can you talk about some of the changes that we've seen in those sections of the...
So those units continue to exist. They just didn't happen to be in that area at that moment when this happened. But they're still very much a part of the Austin Police Department.
the victims, would you say that the suspects that shot, were they aiming for those victims, or did they just get in the way of the gunfire? What can you tell us about that?
I don't have any information right now that the victims were intentionally targeted. It appears that they do appear to be innocent bystanders, but that's still part of that ongoing investigation that we'll have to figure out.
You had said you believe most of the victims were innocent bystanders, or all?
So that is the part that I'm just talking about, where I believe that most are innocent bystanders, but as we conduct those the interviews with the victims, we'll have to figure out what if any involvement they might have had.
And then you said 2 suspects. Do you believe both were shooters?
That is still under investigation right now.
Yeah, I was wondering if you think shots came from either side of those two groups, or if you're not able to say.
Right now I'm not able to say.
Can I ask, are there any safety protocols in place after we had the big South by Southwest, driving into the crowd, that might be in place after that helped last night, or that?
We have had the safety barricades in place for a number of years. Pretty much as far back as I can remember, having worked here at the Austin Police Department. We block off 6th Street on the weekends for a number of nights to ensure, because of the large crowds and they end up in the street, we don't want vehicles coming through there. So that was the case last night, this morning, and will continue to be the case. I'll go ahead and take one more question.
Una pregunta nada más. ¿Qué van a hacer para prevenir algo así esta noche? Número 1 y número 2, el video. Si hay gente latina que tiene video, ¿qué es lo que le está pidiendo usted a esa gente?
Ok, primero la video. Si tienes video, por favor llama al 911 o hay un tip line parada de crimen. Y si llamas ese tip line, usted puede quedar anonymous. Para esta noche y en el futuro, vamos a, primero esta noche, vamos a hacemos una pregunta a la Texas DPS para ayuda y van a ayudar en esta noche y es posible también en los días y también en las semanas en el futuro. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.